Good morning, everyone. This is Mark O'Brien. I'm a director at CA First, and I'm really happy to be hosting today's CA Community webcast. Thank you very much to the CA community for agreeing to host today's webinar. We have several speakers lined up for you. First, I'm going to transition over to Steve Solomon, who is the CA product management main person for CA2E and CA Plex. And then we'll follow with a couple of lightning technical talks, which are very popular with the community. It'll be Roger Griffith of Eagleson, and then Pradeep of CM First Group will be talking about that. If you'd like to share your expertise with a CA product, such as Plex or 2E, we do have a kind of a bounty program for you. And I'll let Steve go into that a little bit more and then talk to us about what's happening with our community worldwide. Take it over, Steve.
Thank you. And it's saludos, damas y caballeros, and salute to our folks that have said hello from Argentina and Italy. Welcome, welcome. Yo soy Steve Solomon, vivo en Arizona. I am the product manager for CA Plex and 2E. I love doing these little conversations with you guys, and today we have a great session. The lightning talk is, hey, where are we at? What's CA working on? And great tips by you guys, the customers. And Roger has stepped up to do one, and he's going to show you some of his favorite stuff. And then Pradeep is going to join, and the whole thing is, where are we at? Where are we on the roadmap? And tips to make you more successful. And if you have great tips, that's where we want you to raise your hand and do one of these. So after you listen to Roger's amazing presentation, I'm sure you're all going to say, I have a great tip everybody else should know, and we want you to be on the next one. So we schedule these every couple of months. Drop a note to either Mark, myself, Ben, your community leaders, and we will put you on the agenda. And the more we help each other, the more we will all benefit. So for my portion of today's lightning talk, let me do a quick road ahead. So I tried to do kind of where we're at and what we're working on because I'm talking about futures. I always have to put a legal disclaimer. Before you make a financial decision from anything that you hear in today's meeting, please reach out to us and let us give you the most recent information. We are an agile shop. We change our roadmap constantly to try to react to your needs as customers. So one of the big things that I want to remind everybody out there, if you are a Plex customer, the 7.2.1 roll-up cumulative PTF, known as PTF 002, aren't we brilliant, our names, has a lot of updated PTFs. So over the past year and a half, we worked really hard on the Plex, working with all of the customers out there on your issues that you reported, creating fixes for those, putting them out in PTF 1, and then a roll-up of PTF 2. So, I mean, there are a lot of fixes out there. There's probably more than 50 between the combined. You will have a much better experience once you get to 7.2.1 PTF. Don't forget, there's also some performance enhancements. So if you are suffering from group model extract update that's taking a long time, be sure you try to get upgraded to this one because you will get some speed performance out of that. So just a reminder, once you get there, you'll have a smoother, better environment for your development organization. All right, here's the big change coming from product management. Originally, we had announced that CA Plex 7.1 and 7.2 were going to go to end of service in December of 2018, and along with CA2E release 8.6. So then I got feedback from the customers and from the advisory board that, by the way, if we send out end-of-service announcements in December, they get lost. People are out on vacation. You get all of these emails. You don't have time to deal with it anyway in the end-of-the-year rush. And so we said, okay, what we're going to do is we will send them out in January. And so that has moved the date. So end-of-service, end-of-support for these products is now scheduled for January 31st, 2019. So if your management has concerns about that, you would like to meet with either the principal architects from one of these products, from our services and support, or myself to talk about what you need to do to upgrade. Do we have services offerings to help you get there? Absolutely. Now is the time to start doing that. Start making your plans in the first quarter of this year if you can, or the first half of this year, so that you can upgrade in the second half of the year and get current. That would be major beneficial. We are here to help you. If your management is concerned about it, hey, I'll be happy to get on a call with them, go through the process. We have a lot of customers that have already made the upgrades, and we have a lot of experience and a lot of confidence that you will be successful. So key change, EOS, January 31st, 2019. we had a customer that was recently asking questions about an upgrade, and so I said, hey, since my architect gave me all of these tips, why not share them with the group? So this is kind of important because if you are C++ out of Plex, yes, you have to rebuild your code due to a compiler upgrade. But if you're C#, you probably don't have to. So this is one of the key things that came up in a discussion with customers saying, okay, well, we C# having to rebuild and retest our application, which is very, very huge. It's quite time-consuming and expensive. That we've done some internal tests here at CA and we're in your architect. That's why it's his upgrade tip. His team has done some validation. And as far as we're aware, a rebuild is not required from our point of view. Now, if you're using custom controls or something unique in your environment, then you'll have to evaluate that. But please, when you do your plan, try doing it without rebuilding your application and make sure there's no issues. We do have quite a few tips that are documented out there. Remember, all of our Plex and TUI documentation is online and Google searchable, and we call it DocOps. And so there are some links to the different DocOps pages to help you see what you need to do, at least from a Plex upgrade to get you to 7.2.1. We are working on customer cases and issues as you guys call in. It seems like the more we talk and with the more customers we engage with, the more requests we get for assistance in different areas, either with upgrading or issues. That has kind of extended our timelines when we're doing new development, and it's always a difficult decision when we're working on fixes. Do we try to put it into the next PTF rollup? So we are working on the CA2E 8.7 PTF rollup 1. So for the 2E customers out there that are on 8.7, we have a lot of PTFs that we've done, and now we put them all together into one big rollup, and we're doing all the automation and testing about those. And as we're testing and validating that, of course, you guys are asking for more changes and fixes. And so we're trying to make that decision on when we're going to cut those out. So just a heads up on the 2E folks, that if you have a case in, you guys are a priority for us. Cases probably coming in the next month or so, we're going to have to make a decision and focus on cutting off the roll-up of the PTF and finalizing it and get that out the door. So it's always a difficult decision to say, hey, we need you to wait a couple of weeks so we can finalize this to benefit all of the customers. But to let you know, we're in that depths of that process, and that's what we're doing at CA. And if you've been helping with us on some of the items, then and validating those, we truly appreciate you help us get that out the door. The other thing is, we would like to ask you, in the WebEx here, does it look like some of the text is getting cut off? But if you could set aside some time in the last half of this year to help us do the validation on the next release of 2E. So back on the 8.8, there's a lot of changes that are happening for database support. That's really the theme. And so it's really aimed at everybody that has very large databases for 2E. And, we can only duplicate so many test customer scenarios on our side. So this is a request from your engineering product management team. If you could put some time in your schedule for the last half of this calendar year to help us test and validate that, we would greatly help appreciate it. And I love this cartoon because it says, hey, can you see we're too busy fighting a war to trial your product? And it's the same thing that happens in a beta. It's basically every time we make the product better, we make it so that you can go faster, have less issues, but we need your help to get there. So it really is a joint effort. And so we do appreciate it. So it's something to consider. If you're a 2E user, you're an experienced 2E developer, please keep this in mind that in the last half of this year, we're going to be reaching out and asking for help. So I would like to turn it over to a good friend of mine, Roger, go Boise State. And I will turn it over to you, and we will make you presenter, and you can take off.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Roger.
Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about a new tool that we use here at Eagleson Systems Products to help us to build our releases and to do it as efficiently as possible. And I'm going to talk about why we need a tool and all the benefits that it offers us. I think that this is an appropriate presentation after Steve just talked about how the entire Plex community has to move to 7.2.1, which requires a complete gen and build of all of your WinC functions. So this is a tool I think that's very appropriate. We are already leveraging the tool, getting immediate value from it, and I think that once you see the tool, I think you're going to also see where it very well may be something that will help you in your efforts to upgrade your Plex applications from one version of Plex to another, or simply to upgrade your application as you make changes to the application. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Roger Griffith. I work for Eagleson Systems Products. We're based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I work from home remotely. I just happened to be at Eagleson in Tulsa this week, having meetings and going through some development stuff that we're working on. My email address is there. I am the world's leading CA Plex evangelist. No one's more passionate about Plex than I am. I've already made arrangements that when I die on my headstone, it's going to say world's leading CA Plex evangelist. Like I say, those arrangements have already been made, so you guys don't have to worry about it. Some of the things I've done over the years as a Plex developer, I have developed and published several different tools and patterns with Plex. These are free tools that have been published on the Plex wiki. So if you go to that link, it will take you to other links that you can get directly to other free tools. One of them is this tool I built called the Plex Upgrade Wizard, that it builds a list for you that you can use to help kind of automate your Genom builds from 7.1 to 7.2.1. So it's a tool we're going to talk a little bit about today, and it kind of plays into this effort. Okay, I mentioned that I work for Eagleson Systems Products. This is a company that was started back in 1992 by Cindy Wright. This is a family-owned business, and they developed the system, which is, they call it the Tribal Assistant System, known as TAS. It was originally built in Obsidian, which is now Plex, and it's been an amazing tool for the company because it allows us to do a lot of development with a minimal amount of people. We're a small company with a very large footprint. The company has 15 employees that are spread between various roles of development and support. We've got 65 plus tribes that span the United States. And I say plus because it's constantly growing. The company has been in a constant mode of growth ever since they started. And every year we add new customers, new tribes. Spread across those 65 plus tribes, we have roughly 2,400 users that use our application. So I mentioned that it's been in a constant sustained growth mode. We're constantly adding new tribes, and we're growing. We're adding new modules to our portfolio for the existing tribes. So there's all kinds of opportunities for the company as we move forward. The application that has been developed is entirely WinC. Everything is C++. The core of the application was built in OBase, and this is mainly because of the fact that the company got started back on Obsidian version 2, and the bulk of the application was in place before Patterns got there. So Patterns comes along, and so most of the new development is all done in Patterns, but the core of the application, the vast majority of the application is in OBase. So that's just kind of an overview of the product, the TAS product that we have. It basically starts off as it's based on what we call the central information file, which is a tribal member, and we have all these modules that basically connect to it. And each tribe has different modules depending on what their needs are. So some of our tribes have, just a few of our modules, and some of our larger tribes, they have a lot of our modules. So every tribe is different in terms of what they use from TAS and what their needs are. So what's kind of interesting about Eagleson is that we actually support and offer multiple versions of our application. This is something that most shops don't do because it's too difficult for them to do. It's difficult to develop it, and it's difficult to support it. But what Eagleson has found is that with a tool like Plex, it accommodates for it very, very well. So we have our application is all in one model, but we have variations of the application within the model. So potentially 65 different variations of the application in the model. And the way it works is every time we get a new tribe, we create a version within the model for their tribe. All of our modules are all developed in Plex levels. Then what we do is for each tribe, we connect the levels that they have to their version, and that is what makes those modules available in their release. So the way it works is that, let me also mention that as we add new modules, they're included in the base release, and they're basically turned on or turned off as far as whether they're available based on data-driven architecture. So we've got kind of the old way we've done it, where everything is basically a custom build for them, and then we've got the new way that we're moving towards, which is we just include all of the modules and then we activate them based on a licensing model. Okay, so on the first slide, you probably saw Clint Eastwood, and here's where that plays into my presentation. So we're going to talk about the good. So there's our buddy Clint, and the good news is that we offer customization of our application to each tribe, each customer that buys our application. We will customize it for them. Now, not all of our tribes have customization, but if they want it, we'll do it for them. So the reason we customize is that, some of our tribes, they've got additional functionality that they want, and we kind of take the Starbucks approach when we sell our software. So, you go into Starbucks and the first thing they say is, what can we get started for you today? And the point is that you're getting something that was built just for you, and you're going to get it just the way you want it. And that's the Eagleson approach. So Plex accommodates for this ability to customize your software for each release of your software, because of the fact that it's got versions and levels built into the tool. So without a tool like Plex, you would never be able to offer this to your customers. But with Plex, it allows you to do it, and it actually works very well. So, and the other thing is because Plex is based on patterns, it allows us to build abstract objects once and then specialize them for each tribe based on their needs. So, like I say, without a powerful ARAD tool like Plex, we simply couldn't offer. So this is our competitive advantage in the space. So now we're going to talk about the bad. So the fact that we can and do offer multiple versions of our application, it prevents us from doing a single build of the application and then deploying that build to all of our tribes. So every time we have a major release of our software or a major release of Plex, it requires that we do a complete gen and build of each version for each tribe. So we've got 65 tribes out there. Every one of them, we do a complete gen and build of every function. And not only do we have to gen and build the entire application, we have to test the entire application for each tribe because it's been customized. It's not just a one version of your software, build it and install it. So after we gen and build it, we test it, and then our trainers and installers, they go on site to the tribes, they install the software, and they train the users on the new features of the software. And there's always a significant volume of new features. So now let's talk about the ugly. So within our application, a typical tribe will have well over 20,000 functions. As you well know, using Plex, you cannot do a gen and build of your entire application of 20,000 functions with a single click of the mouse. What will happen is Plex has a memory leak during the generation process, so Plex will crash if you generate too many objects in one effort. And Visual Studio will start causing each build to fail after about 390. So we found that 390 is kind of a breaking point of anything after that. What happens is that let's say you do 1,000 objects, the first 390 are successful, and then after that they're unsuccessful, they failed, and you can't stop the build. So it just goes and goes and goes, and then you got to kind of start over. So it's very frustrating. So what we found is that we always have to break up our builds into units of about 390. So if you just do the math, you got 20,000 functions, you only can do 390 at a time. You can see that's a significant effort of having to do this. So for us, what it means is that it typically takes several days to do a complete gen and build of a single tribe, and it's very labor intensive. So someone's sitting there, pushing the buttons, monitoring it, and it's prone to human error, because if you miss something, then you wind up, with an incomplete release of your software that surfaces during the testing. Okay, so we went to the conference in Miami this last October, which was an amazing conference, by the way, for anyone who didn't attend. And while we were at that conference, we spoke to John Rhodes from CM First, and we had a discussion with him about what our challenges are at Eagleson. And he mentioned that they have this amazing tool that they have built called the Plex Auto Gen tool, and it automates everything that we have to do during the entire gen and build process. So we downloaded and installed a trial version of the tool, and I worked directly with Kiyoshi during a proof of concepts project to make sure that the tool works as advertised and it would meet our needs, and it did. We worked out a couple of minor issues with the tool, and we bought it, and we are currently using that tool to build our releases of our application, and we love it. So what is the Plex Auto Gen tool? As I mentioned, it was developed by CM First, and it uses the Plex Model API, and what it does is it automates unlimited iterations of the entire process of generating and building your application. So what it does is you start this tool, it opens your local model, it generates either a package, a subject area, or a list, depending on what you choose to use. After the generation, does the build, saves your local model, closes Plex, and it restarts. So then it goes to the next list. And so you're in control of at what point does a save of the local model and closes Plex, restarts Plex, so that takes care of the memory leak, and then you're in control of the size of your subject areas or lists. So like I say, we do approximately 390 in a group. So this thing, you kick it off and it just runs. So in huge builds like we have, this thing is a real game changer. So the way the tool works, it's based on two configuration files. They're a JSON file, and you've got one JSON file which contains the list or the subject areas that you want to build, and this is going to be kind of dynamic. So based on each tribe, they're going to have different lists of subject areas that we're going to build from. And then you have one which is kind of a configuration file that just says, where's your Plex local model live, where does the gen request JSON file live, and then whether or not you want to save at the end of a build. So you can do the gen and build and tell it you don't want to save. Just close Plex, restart Plex, and move on. So you break it up into units, and so you're in control of exactly how this thing works. And basically, once your JSON files are configured, you simply call the CA Auto Gen.exe tool, and it does all the heavy lifting. So here's an example of the two JSON files. The one on the top basically is a pointer to where my local model exists. The second line in the top one there just says, where's the JSON file for gen request. That's the one that contains your list, whether or not you want to generate everything, or you can just do gen only or build only, whatever. And then where does Plex exist on your local machine? The second JSON file there is going to be customized based on your application and your model, and that basically contains pointers to the various subject areas or lists or packages that you're going to gen and build. So that's basically it. It's those two configuration files, and then you just run the thing. So I talked about it will either work with packages, lists, or subject areas. So we use subject areas in lieu of lists or packages. The reason we use subject areas, they're very reusable. During the gen and build of a subject area, Plex isn't updating anything. And that works great because for us, we'll have multiple developers that are kind of reusing this thing at the same time. And so we're not tripping over each other in terms of it trying to update the status of an object and this type of thing. So there is a tool out there called the Plex Upgrade Wizard on the Plex Wiki there, and it's free, and it can be used. If you choose to use lists, you can use that tool to create your list for you of what needs to be gen built based on your application. Okay, we have a custom version of that we use internally, and what it does is it allows us to create subject areas or lists, and within those, it allows us to specify how many functions we want in each list. So if you got 20,000 functions, you run the tool, it will build you a list of, let's say you want 300 functions. It will just build you multiple subject areas. Each subject area contains 300 functions. So for an entire application, it might build 30 subject areas. So the Plex AutoGen tool, like I say, you configure your JSON files, you run the exe. What it does is it brings up a command window. It's a black box, kind of looks like a DOS session there, and basically it starts displaying diagnostic messages as it's running to kind of show you where it's at. And when it's all done, you get a message that says, it is completed, press enter to finish. So the way it works is we'll start this thing like at 5 o'clock before we leave and let the thing run all night. We come in the next morning, the build is done. On a huge build, we'll start the thing on a weekend at 5 o'clock. We come back in Monday, and it has built 20,000 plus functions. Who should be using this amazing tool? My recommendation is anyone out there who has either a very large application that needs to be done efficiently, or if you have a situation where your application is built frequently and you're building large portions of the application. This tool doesn't help you if you're just doing small builds. This is really built for very large builds, and you need efficiency in that build. The other situation is if you have many applications that you need to build and you need to be able to get it done quickly. This is the tool for you. So links, you're probably wondering, where can I get this tool? And the first link there is to CM First, and the second one there is to Mark O'Brien, and he can get you fixed up with this tool. They can set you up with a demo of the tool, give you some pricing. The tool is very affordable, and for us, this tool is worth its weight in gold because of the fact that based on our business environment, we're going to get tremendous value of this tool over the years. I also mentioned the Plex Upgrade Wizard that kind of plays into this. You might want to use it to build lists, and that's the link to get that free tool. So it says test drive if time permitting, and time is not permitting. I've used up all of my time probably, and plus some. So I would recommend to you that if you have an interest in this tool, go to CM First, give Mark a call, and he can give you all of the details. And that is the end of my lightning talk, and so I'm going to hand it over to you guys to do lightning talk number 2.
Okay. Are you pretty?
Good morning all. Today we'll discuss about Plex Java build and debug with Eclipse integration. I've divided this topic into 5: introduction, installation, Plex build setup, post setup, and debug. So first we'll go through the introduction. So why we need Plex build and Java integration with Eclipse? So we have migrated 2 applications to web applications. It was necessary for us to build and debug Java source code. So we have implemented one-step build process, which is really easy. It just need to install a plugin, and we have applied standard debug practices for our entire team. I'll show this through a video. So we need this plugin to be installed in Eclipse. So drop this plugin in the drop-ins folder of your Eclipse installation. Then launch your Eclipse and go to Help. We have option About Eclipse. In that, take installation details and go to Plugins tab. You will find the plugin in there. Then you'll have the option Plex available in your menu, and that will have 2 options: Start Plex Service and Stop Plex Service. You need to start the Plex service. After this, go to your Java project, right click, and you'll have the option Add Remove Plex Nature. Choose the option Add Remove Plex Nature. And you're all done here. Go to your local model. Go to Gen and Build options. Go to Name Allocation Parameters, and we need to add a couple of entries here. 1, Move Source, and you need to give the value as false. And another one, Target Build Project, and the value should be the same name of your Java project in Eclipse. So in my case, it's Neptune_Java. and click OK. So with this, we are done with the setup and we are ready to build any function we require. So we can do it in just one step and the function gets built. This is one step build process. Now we'll go for Eclipse, debugging in Eclipse. So I'll take you through that with another video. We need to know a few steps like how to install breakpoints, how to remove breakpoints, and we can we also need to know step in, step over, and I'll explain them in this video. So go to the program where you want to which function you want to debug. Highlight the line, bring the cursor to the line where you want to insert a breakpoint. So you can do that by highlighting the line and double clicking on the blue bar at the left. And if you double click once again, the breakpoint will be removed. If not, you can go to run and you'll have toggle breakpoint option for the same. You can insert a breakpoint with this option. And if you want to remove that breakpoint, you can do that with the same option again. I have already inserted a couple of breakpoints in the code, so I'll show the debugging process with this. So to go ahead with the debug, you need to start the server in debug mode. Launch your application and choose the menu option which will call your function. So the function will automatically start at the first breakpoint in the code. So I'll do F6, which is step over F6, F6. So we'll step over each line of code. At any point of time, if you want to go into a subroutine, you can do an F5, and I will show in the coming part. So I'm doing F6, F6. And at any point of time, if you want to skip and go to the next breakpoint instead of doing it line by line, you can do F8. So here we have a subroutine, and I'll be stepping over this instead of stepping into, and I'll show step into after this. And also at any point of time, if you want to inspect a field value, you can do that by going to highlighting the field and going to run and inspect, or you can use Ctrl Shift I to inspect the field value. So I highlight the field and do Ctrl Shift I or run inspect. So that will give the value of that field. Next, I'm going into the subroutine by using F5, so it brings the control into the subroutine, and we can go F6, F6 to step over the each line of code. And at any point of time, if you want to just come out of the code, you need to use F7, and it will bring the control back to back out from the subroutine, and you can debug from that point of time. And at any point of time, if you want to terminate the debugging, you can go to run and we'll have option terminate. So these are few steps that we use while debugging, and I'll also tell you the advantage of using Eclipse debugger. So it provides breakpoints, watch points, and at runtime you can inspect field values. It also provides various views for debug perspectives. So we'll have wide range of wide range of advantages using Eclipse debugger. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Pradeep. Who's going to be presenting next?
I think we're into the wrap-up in the Q&A.
Okay.
So I did have a question. I don't know if it's going to be for Roger or CM first, but on the conversion utility, what versions of Plex are supported by that utility?
I would say probably certainly 7.1, which is the release that we're currently on, and I believe that it also works with 7.2.1. CM First is probably going to be the only ones that can answer that for sure.
And George did post a question in the Q&A to give a shout out to the author of that utility. Since you worked with Kiyoshi, can we give him the credit?
Absolutely, Kiyoshi. He was fantastic. He spent a lot of time with me talking about it. You know, we kind of worked out a few minor little issues that were like configuration type stuff, but he really put a lot of time into it to make sure that we had a successful endeavor as we went through that proof of concepts thing. So it is a fantastic tool. We love it. We haven't had it that long, but we already love it. And I think if you were to talk to me a year from now, I think that we're going to have nothing but success, and I would be even more impressed with the tool the more we use it.
Wonderful. So I'm looking at the, go ahead.
I was going to say, I see another question out there that says, in percent, how many applications will upgrade without human works? I'm going to say probably right now 0% without any human works, and it's not because of the tool, it's just because of the fact that with our application, it's so large and changes have been made over in the model since the last tool. So what happens is that you take something that was gen built 3 years ago, and then you make changes in your model, and then you try and gen and build it 3 years later, and you always run into, you know, little issues here and there where, you know, there's like something that got changed, but it never did get, you know, generated, and so you always find up, you know, you got a little, some cleanup stuff here and there. But this tool does, you know, all the heavy lifting. So when we say how many applications will gen and build and upgrade with no human, it's like right now I'm going to say none of them will, but the tool is probably doing 98% of all the heavy lifting. So then we're able to focus on, you know, the 2%, you know, something that didn't generate or didn't build, you know, why didn't it build? You know, there's always, you know, those functions that you've got to get in and research and figure out. But you know, if I think about, you know, the entire scope of a project, this tool is going to do the vast majority of all that heavy lifting. So it is fantastic.
George had a follow-up question for you about, are you doing nightly builds then? When you have such a large application, you mentioned about running it at night. Are you doing those nightly? Absolutely.
Well, not every night, but when we run it, we would normally have to do it during the day because you've got to sit there and a human, me, has got to go through all the process of, you know, batching them up and, you know, doing them one at a time, you know, push a button, drag and drop, you know, push a button, whatever. So it used to be, you know, a very manual effort. And now with this tool, it basically allows you to put it into kind of a batch environment, and then you just start it and then you just let it run. So I'm going to say, yes, definitely run it at night unattended, and on huge ones, we're going to start it on a weekend at 5 o'clock in the evening and let it run all weekend.
And then Roger, George posted a follow-up. Okay. I think he's making a point that your model is current and it's up to date. You always know if you're doing that. And I have a question for you then. Are you running like a regression suite against your applications? So you're doing the build, or you're doing like a full CI/CD process where you have a whole set of regression tests running against it? Or maybe that's next.
No. I'll be honest with you. Because of the fact that we've got, you know, basically 65 potential different flavors of our application, it really doesn't allow us to use like automated testing software to do it. We're trying to move towards a configuration where we have less versions of our software. And so ultimately, yes, we would love to use regression testing, automation, and all that type of thing. And ultimately, to have fewer builds than 65. We would love it if we could have, you know, one build, and that build included all the flavors of our software, and then as it's installed, the software based on configuration and that type of thing will run the appropriate version of the software. So ultimately, yes, we would like to get to a point where our entire application is one build, but we're a long ways from getting there. So for us, the fact that we've got multiple builds of our software and they're all very large means that without a tool like this, it's an intensive effort. But this tool really helps us to be more efficient in how it's done and to be faster. And the faster is because of the fact that, letting the thing run at night when no one's sitting there babysitting the thing, that there's tremendous value there.
So we have another question from the Q&A. This one's for Jorge. Hello, Jorge. So the question that he posed and I answered in the community, in the chat, if you guys are following along, is about a Plex roadmap. We are working on that. Arun and VJ, which is your architect and product owner, and myself have come up with a list of the things we'd like to do. So we've been sorting it down to the highest priorities. We're not quite ready to share that in the next community update. I'm hoping that we're going to do these every other month, and it depends on if you guys volunteer to do a lightning talk like Pradeep and Roger have done. The more that we get volunteers, the sooner we'll turn these around and the more we'll do of them. But if not, the next time we do these, we are intending to do the Plex roadmap. And as soon as we do some more analysis on the features and the sizing, scoping, and feasibility, there are some great things on Jorge's. I think he's pitching for two of them, a .NET generator for web. That sounds bigger than what Arun has told me about. But RESTful Web Services, I'm sure everybody is most interested in REST and JSON support. So we'll communicate that and what we're planning at the next community meeting. Any other questions? Then I have another one. If you're following along, I had answered Lou about technical documentation. I want to be very clear, and I don't want to be seen as the flippant on the answers, is that our documentation and the way we move to DocOps to have it online, you guys get to participate with that. If there's something that is missing, something that is not documented, there's no intention to have non-documented fixes out there. The DocOps documentation should be being updated on a regular cadence. It's one of the reasons that we ask you guys not to download PDFs. And if you have a CA support ID, you can go put comments directly into the DocOps system, and those comments get collected by our technical writer engineers, and then they get graded on them and updated them just like any other case. So if you have the ability to create a case with CA, you have the ability to post comments into the documentation and say, this isn't clear, this needs to be updated, this is missing, and or create a case with our support organization if there's something that's either not clear or missing. It is part of our goals not only to give you quality software, but quality documentation is part of that. And we have a fairly large tech writing organization in CA, we call them DocOps for short, and they have goals to make sure that when you do any kind of feedback on our products, the documentation is rated very high. So if we've got a gap in there, if you see something that's not correct, bring it up. You're always welcome to send it to me also as the product manager. I'll be happy to address it with our Scrum team and our DocOps team. Any other questions? Andreas is saying that if you use WebCity, you may not have the big problem with 390 WinC functions at a time. So if you guys are using a WebCity utility, you may also have a solution already. Andreas, I think can you volunteer to do a demo the next time? So drop us a note if you want us to show what you guys are doing with 10,000 functions using WebCity. So this call is a community call. I know we have a lot of CM first, but all of the partners, anybody you guys want to see, it's tips and tricks across the board. All right, I don't see any other questions. Mark, Roger, Pradeep, are we good to wrap up?
I believe so.
All right, so thank you everybody for attending. If you'd like to volunteer, you get a nice little thank you, and you can be known from your peers. Also, you heard Roger pitch the conference. It was phenomenal. I think if you would have come and you would have got some of those tips, you would have paid for your travel just in a couple-hour conversation. So hopefully we can get together next time. We'll have even more to talk about. So thank you for attending, and please look forward to the next one. Stay tuned to the community for the next community meeting announcement. Cheers.